Ms. McSally.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks, all of you, for your testimony. I think it's been a long day, but I appreciate your patience. General Odierno, I'd like to ask you, you've said in the past, quote, our soldiers are very confident in the A-10. Is that still true? Just yes or no. I got a lot of questions there, if you don't mind.
They are confident in the A-10, yes.
And you've also said, quote, that your soldiers, quote, prefer the A-10. Is that still true, yes or no?
It depends on the environment.
Okay, thank you, sir. And you've also said that, quote, the A-10 is the best close air support platform we have today. Do you still believe that to be true?
In Iraq and Afghanistan.
Okay, thank you, sir. And I just want to do a shout out to the A-10 units right now that are deployed in the fight against ISIS, and also the 354th Fighter Squadron, which I commanded, is deployed over to the UCOM theater right now to assure and train our allies with Russians' increased aggression. So, Secretary James, just given General Odierno's statements that he just reaffirmed, is the decision to mothball the A-10 a budget-based decision only?
It's driven by the budget, yes.
Just by the budget. So if you had more money, you would keep the A-10 in the inventory?
I would, yes.
Okay, great. So I think your budget request is about, what, $10 billion over the sequester number, or what's?
$10 billion, and I have to add that we would need dollars above the president's budget level.
That's what I'm getting. So how much more money would you need above the president's budget request in order to not mothball any A-10s?
I think the one-year cost would be on the order of between $400 and $500 million, but please let me check that to be sure. But if you look over the 5-year period of time, it's closer to $4 billion.
Got it. I've heard you say $4.2 billion, but just for next year, would you guys get back to me what that cost would be? And I'm assuming there may be other unfunded mandate or other unfunded requests above that, or if we were able to get you another $400, $500 million, would you keep the A-10 in the inventory?
I'd like to yield.
How much more money do you need to keep the A-10?
We'd have to go look at it because it's beyond the A-10.
Okay.
We have to look at where we develop manpower now
Right.
to do maintenance for new airplanes that are being fielded. So it's beyond just the cost of the A-10, but the A-10 cost is $4.2 billion for the fight-up. It's $520 million or so next year.
Thank you. And I noticed in the discussion last year, and this is a very important one because we're talking men and women on the ground under fire in harm's way and making sure they have the best capability overhead, especially when they're in close proximity with enemies and friendlies where they need long lighter time and firepower and survivability in that environment, and that's where the A-10 brings the best capability overhead. So this is really important. I know in the past there's been a discussion, it's been said the A-10 is old, the A-10 is aging, and we need new capabilities. But I noticed in your testimony you highlighted that your youngest B-52 is 53 years old and you'd like to keep it in the inventory until 2040, which by my math, that would mean your youngest B-52 would be 78 years old in 2040. And so you're keeping an aging airplane that certainly can't survive in a high air defense environment like the B-52, but we've heard the argument in the past that the A-10 is old. We've invested over $1 billion in it to rebuild its wings and the A-10C and its avionics and the capabilities. So those two things seem to be sort of contradictory. So I just wanted a comment on that.
We don't have the B-52 in the inventory by choice. If you recall, the B-2 was supposed to replace a large part of that fleet, but that buy was stopped at 20 aircraft. So that's why we're building the long-range strike bomber now, because we need 80 to 100 bombers. Same thing's true with the A-10. We don't want the A-10 to be flying this mission when it's 50, 60, 70 years old. That is not fair to the sons and daughters of America.
So, okay, so the B-52 is still flying because we don't yet have a capability to replace it. But the A-10 is being asked to be mothballed, but we don't have a capability yet to replace it, even though it can fly until at least 2028 and 2030. So how does that?
The A-10 is being retired because of the Budget Control Act.
Okay, got it. So
of course,
right now,
we do have the other aircraft that can cover the mission of close air support. That's the other reason.
Not under the circumstances that I mentioned, having flown the A-10 in combat. There are unique circumstances where only the A-10 can save lives. Would you not agree with that, Secretary James?
I do not agree with that. I think there are circumstances where you would prefer to have an A-10.
Okay.
We have priced ourselves out of that game.
Okay. So it is a budget issue.
Every option available.
If we had the funds, and with the current wings rebuilding the A-10C, is it 2028 still where it could fly until before it needs to be retired? 2028? Okay, great. And right now the plan is to replace the A-10 eventually with the F-35. Is that true?
The F-35 will be the high-threat cast platform of the future.
Okay, so the A-10 will be replaced by the F-35?
The F-35 will take the place of the A-10 and the F-16 eventually, but in the CAS arena, we'll replace the A-10 capability more near term with F-16s and F-15Es, It will augment that with the B-1 when the scenario allows us to, even the B-52, the AC-130, et cetera. But we will eventually have the F-35 as the high-end cast.
Yes, sir, got it. My time's expired. I know we've talked about this before, but I don't believe the F-35 replaces the A-10 and the capabilities it brings to the fight for General Odierno's troops to make sure that they live to fight another day and get home to their troops. I love the F-35. It's a great airplane, but doesn't replace those capabilities.
Congressman, I love your pen, but the A-10 also cannot operate in a high-threat environment and provide close air support he might need in that environment.
Absolutely. We need all those capabilities. Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
y'all
I
aren't going to
appreciate it.
decide
Thanks,
this
everybody.
now, but I appreciate the discussion.
We're gonna do this outside and start.
Thank y'all for your patience. I think maybe we just have a couple more, Mr.